people live and learn, people change, and some people stay married and some people just don't. What kind of father are you given your situation?
We RAD Dads, bringing a soft edge to a hard topic. Join us every week as we talk to real people with real stories, from the everyday single parent to family professionals, and find entertainment along the way. Join me, Walter J. Eggers, as I discover and share wisdom. Positive changes start here. Episode 7. Hello and welcome back, RAD Dads. Walter Eggers here. Today we get the unique opportunity to talk to Larry Hagner of the Good Dad Project. Larry is an author, a speaker, a husband, and a dad to 4 boys, the youngest at just 1 month old. I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down and talking with Larry about the beginnings of the Good Dad Project. Larry identifies struggles that led to his eventual ascent to meaningful life change, relationships, and assuming the patriarchal role of the involved dad. Larry's got something for all of us to hear, and a very inspiring story along the way. Join us as Larry sprinkles nuggets of wisdom throughout. He's full of fantastic and practical advice for all dads, and gives us some strategies to move towards being the best dads we can be. That's what we're all about here at RAD Dads. So without further ado, let's get into it. I wanted to take a quick moment and encourage you to share this with anyone who might find value in it. Text it to them, tell them about it, forward it to them. There are many ways to share this program, but the important thing is that you do. Knowledge, wisdom, conversation is great, but without sharing it, we're all missing out. So take the time and share it with a friend today. Want to help us out? Leave us a rating and review on iTunes. A 5-star rating gives us the metrics to keep producing amazing content, and we're here to serve you. If we haven't earned a 5-star rating, contact us via email, walter@weraddads.com. Let me know what I can do better. You can also contact us on our Facebook group at We Rad Dads. All right, back to the program. Hello and welcome, Rad Dads. Walter Eggers here, and I am absolutely stoked to bring you our guest today, Larry Hagner of the Good Dad Project. I mean, for me right now, it just doesn't get any bigger than this. Larry, how you doing today?
Walter, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm elated. I'm elated. Today is an amazing day. Larry, you're an author. You're the founder of the Good Dad Project. You're a speaker. You're a husband. You're a father. You just got all these irons in the fire. Just loving to have you on right now. Tell us a little bit more about yourself. What do you got going over there?
Oh, man, I've got going a lot. I'm one of those crazy people that have 4 kids, like four.
Ugh. Congrats. And 1 month old at home, by the way. One of those 4 is a 1 month old. Huge congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1 month old. And I got to tell you, you said congratulations. And I have to tell you this. No one says congratulations when you tell people that you have 4. So thank you for that, because when you have 4, I mean, no kidding around, I have gotten responses of, wow, or when are you going to stop, or what's wrong with you, or are you crazy? So the congrats, I mean, you can almost see it coming. Like, I can almost tell what the person's going to say, like, wow, they're not going to say congrats. But yeah, there's not many of us out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just, oh man, I've turned my perspective, and family is such a value to me that, I got to be honest with you. I really envy your situation. The reason why we're here is it wasn't always that easy in that, blissful existence. Major kudos to you, sir.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's definitely been hard work. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, fatherhood isn't easy. There are certain things I think that we can put into place that will make things easier, but it can be a long, treacherous road, if you're not well prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's kind of how I started my journey. I think every new father starts that journey unprepared. That's just all there is to it.
Oh yeah. I don't think you're ever really ready for it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, cool, man. You've been doing the Good Dad Project for about how long now?
It's been, I launched it officially in 2013. So it's been, 2014. So it's been 2 years that it's been online. And then before that, it was just for about a year. It was a Facebook page.
Awesome. And it just kind of grew and developed.
It did. I mean, I could tell you the backstory behind it, but long story short, it was I started a Facebook page called the Good Dad Project, and to be honest with you, I was the project. I was the Good Dad Project. The Good Dad Project was me, because I've been a dad for 10 years, and I can tell you very transparently that for the first 5 years, it was a struggle. It was a big time struggle for me, and I think a lot of that had to do with maybe my past and some baggage that I had around it, but to me, I always like to use this analogy. I got my degree, my college degree in health and nutrition. So I could really tell you anything about exercise. I could tell you about health. I could tell you what to eat. And for me, being a father, it felt like I was going to work every day as an architect. I mean, I just felt completely unequipped for the job. Mm-hmm. And you know what that's like. I mean, we as men, when we're trying to do something well, especially something that's so important to us, and we don't feel up to the task, man, it can just be so defeating, and it can be really hard on our confidence. And that's where a lot of my struggle just came from. So at one point, I hit just a severe low point, and I started the Good Dad Project page. I made a decision. I was like, that's it. I'm just going to be better at this. I'm going to become a student of this. I'm going to learn everything I can about it. And I'm just simply going to share what I'm learning. And that's what the Facebook page group was. And then a year later, it turned into a blog. And then actually a year ago this week, we're at episode 52 on our podcast. Our podcast has been officially around for a year. And I also have a book out. And if you would have asked me 3 years ago if I would have thought it'd ever turn into this, I mean, I would have told you were nuts, because I didn't think any of this was possible. And I didn't even realize how much of a need it was out there. But yet, here we are. So it's just been an awesome journey.
That's just, there's so much winning right there. I love these stories. And I love that, on top of it all, you're just your dad, like the rest of us, trying to figure it out and move forward. Oh man, you just uncovered a lot of key concepts that, hope we can kind of dive into a little bit later in here. But, without further ado, let's get to know who you are at your core here real quick. Can you name an obscure band or silly trend or ridiculous thing that you used to totally be into that we can identify with? What was it?
Something that I was into, like ridiculously.
Yeah, like a pop culture trend, or maybe a band or something. The way you dressed, something like that.
Yeah, so I was a huge Michael Jackson fan growing up.
Awesome.
So I'm 40, so that's when Michael Jackson was kind of cool. Back in the day. I'm talking like the early 80s.
Oh yeah, Thriller and the rest of it. Yeah.
So believe it or not, if you can remember the jacket that he wore in the video Beat It with all the zippers on it.
The red one?
Yes, I had one. And dude,
yes.
I wore it everywhere. And it actually wasn't until probably 5 years ago. I mean, I held on to that thing that long. I didn't wear it every day, but
you should have.
But I know, right? But I did. I put it on eBay and I sold it for like $1,000.
No way.
Yes, someone paid $1,000. I think back in the day when I got it, when I was in second grade, I was 7 at the time. I think it was $35, and
wow.
I was like, I'm never gonna wear this again, and I'll just put it on eBay and see how much the bids go up. And sure enough, that's what it ended up at.
That is phenomenal, man. I would have been torn in selling that thing, but for $1,000, I might have let it go. What size was it?
It was like I was an overweight kid, so it was a medium. And believe it or not, here I am, 40 years old. It's still, it was skin tight, but it actually did fit. Like if I went to wear it for Halloween, I could probably get away with it. But yeah, I think it was a medium, but it still fit me.
Wow, schmedium.
That's medium.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, here I am picturing this like tiny zippered jacket that you're just carrying around with you for no reason. But that makes more sense now, actually. Nice. So, hey, what's a favorite guy humor or stupid movie that you're just kind of prone to always laughing at?
Oh my gosh.
There's a couple. I'll go ahead and, spoiler alert real quick. I know you mentioned Office Space. I'm going to take that one from you. There's a couple more. There's a ton out there, but I've heard you reference that here recently a couple times.
Yeah.
Huge fan of that one myself.
Office Space is definitely one. Dumb and Dumber is like a classic. That
Absolutely.
I don't think that will ever go away. So.
The original. They can't remake it or any of the others. Just don't bother. But the original Dumb and Dumber. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Classic.
Yes. There's always a lot of shenanigans like between me and my friends. We'll quote that movie just relentlessly. It drives my wife just crazy.
Of course. Big gulps, huh?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. So, can you tell us something about you that nobody or maybe very few people know about you?
One thing, yeah, very few people know is that right now, I think I'm probably a crazy person, but so I'm a huge fan, and he's been on our show, of Mark Devine, who wrote a book called Unbeatable Mind. He's a commander in the Navy SEALs,
Mm-hmm.
and Mark runs a company called SEAL Fit. And so for the past 12 weeks, I've been doing this workout regimen called SEAL Fit training, and just basically what the SEALs do to get ready for training and all that. So Mark has got a couple different programs. One is called Unbeatable Mind, which is it's a retreat. It's a weekend getaway where not a lot of it is not physical, but it's more the mental. And I did that back in December. And Mark has two other camps, one called Kokoro Camp, which Kokoro, I believe, means to merge body, mind, spirit together. And what he basically does is he replicates the 50-hour hell week that the SEALs go through, where you basically get no sleep in your training. Now, I'm not going to go out and do, I don't think that, but what I am training for, and I haven't really said this out loud because I didn't know if I want to be held accountable to it or not, but I
Now
guess
you are.
now I am. I'm going to do his program called 20X, which 20X replicates 12 hours of that 50-hour hell week. So, I mean, I've heard people who have done it. Actually, I had a good friend of mine who just did it, and she said it was literally the hardest thing she's ever done in her entire life. And where they basically put you through 12 hours of this 50-hour Navy SEAL Hell Week. And I'm planning on doing that in 2017. So I'm trying to get my body, my mind ready for that. So I've been training for the past 12 weeks, and I think I'm going to take a full year to train for it.
No, it sounds awesome. I got to be honest with you. That's what's one of every boy's dream is to be a soldier, but to be a SEAL is like 10X on top of that. So that's a huge undertaking, and congratulations with that, first of all.
Thank you.
To have that goal. And secondly, it was surprising to me anyway, to find out that it was a woman friend of yours that actually had gone through it.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, if you actually look at the participants who do this Kokoro camp and what's called the 20X camp, I mean, about 30% are women, which is kind of interesting.
That's pretty awesome to know that, it's not gender dominated to have that kind of, the SEAL mentality, or at least to want to have that kind of edge. So fantastic. That's great. I'll have to look into that a little bit more. And of course, we'll have that on the show notes as well. The links to Mark Devine's SEAL Fit and Unbeatable Mind, Kokoro Camp, and so forth.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, wow. We're speaking the same language over here. I love it. Well, cool. Let's dive into our words of motivation here. As what I like to say on the show, and how I like to live actually is a quote by Charles Schwindel. It says, "Life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it." How does that resonate with you in your life currently?
That's a great question, and one that I'll answer with a lot of transparency. So, I think that we all know that, right? I think, but when it comes to the heat of the moment, and when it comes to things that are thrown our way, right? Like our obstacles, our curveballs, just the things that stress us out, we forget that, and to be honest with you, for years, I think I'm 40. I probably spent 37 of those years with the wrong mindset, with the mindset of maybe that victim mentality a little bit. I think I had that early on, and it slowly kind of started to die away in my 30s. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt now that I definitely feel that I own my responses and my reactions to things. And to be honest with you, I still, I still don't make the best decisions in the heat of the moment. Sometimes I'll react and not respond. It's one of those things that it's an art. You constantly try to sharpen it. Do you ever really master it? I don't know. Maybe the elite does, but I definitely agree that life is exactly that, which is it's 90% how you respond to any given obstacle that's set in front of you. And it's really up to us to own it. We can't fall back and say, well, I reacted that way because of this. Mm-hmm. I will say this about it, though. I mean, when it comes to being a father, I know that this is kind of this is a dad show. When it comes to with our kids, when it comes to situations with our kids, and I'm no parent expert, but I can tell you this, it's done wonders for me. And guests I've had on the show, we've talked about this as well, is that when we don't respond well to something that happens to us to something that happens to our kids, which then spills over onto us, whether they act out or whether they lie or whatever makes us angry in the moment. And sometimes we can overreact and we can lose our temper as parents. One of the things I can tell you that I've learned is at times where I have maybe not have where I reacted wrongly, or I wish I would have made a different decision with how I responded. The thing that always kind of helps me and helps our situation is if I take a minute, cool down, and I'll go to my kids and I'll be like, hey, look, listen, how I reacted to what you told me, that wasn't right. It doesn't make what you did right, okay? You shouldn't have done X, Y, or Z or whatever it was. So we still know that that's wrong, right? Yes, okay. But how I responded to that, that wasn't the best way to respond. And maybe I should have been a little bit more calmer, and I'm sorry about that. So owning that response, teaching your kids like, hey, you have ownership in how we react. We have ownership in how we respond. And if you respond incorrectly, you need to go back and make amends and apologize. And I think there's lessons that they can learn just through our example to do that.
Oh man, you're full of just nuggets, man. Holy cow. You just dropped a ton on us. And that mentality of owning your mistakes, especially to your kids. Kids are great and quick to forgive, but man, I've been doing that too. And I've just been seeing a huge positive result. Just own it to them, make them understand what it is that, you had an issue with in your response. And if you reacted, which the difference between those two we'll get into a little bit too, but if you had reacted poorly, just own it. That's such a key concept and something I would really like to get across to every dad as much as possible. Owning your responses. Wow, thank you for sharing. That was amazing.
Hey, no problem.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait to hear what else you have to say. So, question: what are your initial thoughts when a man identifies himself as some form of a non-traditional parent, like a single parent or a step parent or maybe a stay-at-home dad?
I think every situation is unique. I mean, I'm definitely not one of those people that, hey, you have to stay married because, or if you're a stay-at-home dad, that's demasculating. I think, to be honest with you, there's a part of me that I would love to be a stay-at-home dad. I mean, if I could, I don't think that that's possible with our arrangement and what we do. But I mean, my first response is for a single father. I mean, the divorce rate's almost 50%. So for single fathers, divorced fathers, I mean, there's always, people live and learn, people change, and some people stay married and some people just don't. I think my response is, what kind of father are you given your situation? There are some married fathers out there that are not engaged whatsoever to their kid's life. And then there are some single fathers who they literally try to do everything right, no matter what. And so, I mean, given the situation, I don't think the situation really matters. It really matters what do they do with that situation? Yeah. And what do they do? What do they choose to do with their time when it comes to making that time count? Or are you going to be on automatic pilot? And you almost don't need a situation. I mean, you could still even be a stay-at-home dad and you're with your kids, 90% of the time, but you're not there.
Yeah.
A perfect example of this, here I am, I'm the host of, the GDP, and I wrote this book and that kind of thing, but that doesn't mean my life is sunshine and rainbows. And sometimes I need a slap upside the head to remind me, hey, you need to be here and you need to be engaged. And last night, I'll share this story with you. Mm-hmm. We were sitting around. We started kind of doing this new routine on Sunday evenings where my wife and my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old, and we sit on the floor and we hold hands and we pray together. And we just say simple things of like, hey, what are some things we were thankful for this week, and what are some things we're struggling with? And it was just, I didn't really grow up with a whole like a spiritual driven childhood at all. And I wouldn't say like we're 100% now, but we are trying to teach our kids the importance of spirituality and prayer and all that. And my wife, she's very spiritual, and she's like, hey, let's maybe try this. Like, let's get the kids involved and see what they say and that kind of thing. And And I shared a few things that I thought I was struggling with, and my 10-year-old told me, he's like, he's like, if I could share something with you, it's I think you struggle with being off your phone at night. And I'm like, I looked at him, I'm like, oh wow. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, he's like, we'll be sitting there watching TV, and he's like, and I know you don't really like my shows, but I know you're on your phone, and sometimes I just would rather have you there. And that was a strong reminder to me that even when we're just together, I need to be off that device, and it's no, I'm out here. I was last night, just kind of, we were watching SpongeBob, and I don't like SpongeBob. So I was on my phone, but yet I didn't know it was affecting him. Like, he wanted to be like, hey Dad, I want you to watch SpongeBob with me. Yeah. So it's a perfect example of what did I choose to do with my time? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't a wise decision. So I tasked my 10-year-old and my 8-year-old, when you see me on my phone from the hours of 5 to 9, you tell me to get off, and you will not get in trouble, because I need a reminder sometimes to do the right thing, just like I remind you to do the right thing. So you do that for me. And so we made that arrangement, and I can, this morning over breakfast, I get up with my kids every morning, and my phone went off, and I went to look at it, and both of them at the same time were like, Dad, get off. And I'm like, see, I need to be reminded. So that's, yeah, I think it's what you do at that time.
That two-way communication, that accountability both ways. I just, building that relationship in that way, I can't help but believe and know that that's going to make your boys stronger men, to know that they can have that open line with you without you, reacting, with you responding instead appropriately.
Right. I mean, because we're all human, and we all need to be, it doesn't matter if you're 10 years old or you're 40. Sometimes you just need to be told or reminded, hey, make the right decision here.
Yeah. And at the same time, you need to be in your own head. And this is me talking to me, of course, but you need to be in your own head and saying, you know what, I need to be humble to this. This is it may not be the truth that I want to hear, but it's a truth that I need to hear and I need to abide by. So, right. Just put it away and do what you're supposed to do, and there'll be time, but I can't stress enough, especially with kids, you're never going to get that instant, that moment, those times back. And for what? Will you remember that email? Will you remember that whatever it is you're working on? And then, 10 years from now, probably not.
Probably not.
Awesome. And I almost hate to do this, but we gotta dive into, what makes Larry who he is today. And we're going to dive into the bomb crater. So are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. So we know what the bomb crater is. It's your life is going to explode due to an event. You're left in kind of a pit. You can't see, you can't hear. You're in the hole. That's all you do know. And you can see the hole and the sky above you. And that's it. You're basically at rock bottom. So Larry, tell us about your bomb. What event or string of events led you to that place?
Like I shared in the beginning of the show, for the first 5 years of my fatherhood journey, I really struggled with it. And, I wasn't mentally abusive. I wasn't physically abusive. But I was just kind of not there. I tried to do this fatherhood thing at an arm's length. And I think a lot of it had to do with fear, to be honest with you. Total fear of failing as a father. I grew up in a really chaotic sort of childhood environment. My mom was married 3 times. I didn't meet my biological father and have a relationship with him until I was 30, so 10 years ago. And the lessons I learned from growing up was how devastating it was to not have a father around, but also how devastating it was to have a toxic father around, because I had both. Yeah. And I really didn't have, I had one man in my life who was a very positive person in my life, and that was my grandfather. But I did, it's not like he lived with us or anything like that. So when it came time for me to be, a father myself, I really struggled with it and just wasn't engaged. And I didn't have any patience. I didn't have a whole lot of work-life balance. I kind of dove into the things that I felt confident doing, which was work. And I was also kind of really deep into my hobbies at the time. I was training in martial arts quite a bit. I had a bucket list thing to get my black belt. And so I was working, I was training, and I'll never forget, my wife sat me down after my first son was about 1, and she kind of gave me that talk. She was like, look, I love you and everything, and you have the potential to be a great father, and you're just not doing it. You're just not showing up. You're kind of escaping it. And I just need to know, are you in this with me or not? Because I feel like I'm kind of doing this by myself. And kudos to her for having the courage to, and it was the exact talk I needed at the time.
Yeah.
So fast forward a few years later when we had our second son, my rock bottom was 5 years ago when we were packing our house to move. And I had spent all night packing this one room, and I had boxes like literally from floor to ceiling. And I hate moving anyway. I mean, like I loathe moving. And so I just got done packing. I told he was 3 at the time. I was like, do not go in there and touch the boxes, whatever you do. And a bunch of his toys were in there. And so I left the room for a little bit, came back, and I came back to the room. It looked like the Tasmanian devil had been through it. Like I just stuff everywhere that I had just packed. And I was so pissed off. And I ended up spanking him, and I spanked him hard. And it was, again, 90% of what happens to us is the response. And that was the wrong response. I reacted. And my wife even told me, she's like, give me a break. Like, he's 3. Like, he was trying to get to his toys. He's 3. And I was devastated, totally devastated, because I knew I had hurt him. And I knew that was the exact opposite of what I wanted to be. And I went into my office and I got on Facebook because I wanted to just distract myself. And I was kind of that was the lowest point I think I was. And I saw this tab on the side. It said create a page. And I just basically said to myself, I was like, man, if I don't get this part of my life figured out, I'm going to lose this part of my life. And my kids are going to forever remember their dad just being a jerk. And that's not what I want. So I just opened myself up to, you know what, I'm just going to go out on the internet every day, and I'm going to try to research just something, just one thing that maybe I'm struggling with, and just get an answer for it. And I'm going to read books for self-development, self-improvement, and I'm going to invest time, effort, money, whatever it takes just to be a better person. So what I basically did is I read some parenting books, but it was more self-development books, because I thought being a better person was more important than having situational strategies, if that makes sense. Because if you're not going to fix the core of who you are, then the rest really kind of doesn't matter anyway.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, that was probably my low point. I mean, I call that kind of my Jerry Maguire moment, where it was late. It was the middle of the night. I was sitting there in front of my computer. I was upset, and I was like, that's it. That's it. I'm done. I'm done living this way, and I got to figure this out. And in that came this.
I identify with your story in a lot of different ways, and I think a lot of dads do, where whatever outside influence gets to us, and kids will be kids. That situation or something similar happens, react. And you react inappropriately, and immediately afterwards, every single time, and I've done this so many times, and each time it just kills me afterwards, where I realize what I've done, and what I've done to my son, and what I've done, it hurts me emotionally. As a guy, it's hard to say that, but the reality is as dads, that's a soft spot. That's the weakness right there. And the one thing that you spend your life trying to, cultivate, foster, grow, teach, there you are in your worst moment, just not doing that, not being a positive influence. And
right.
Well, it sounded like you took that and immediately pivoted, or at least started. You put one foot in a different direction. And from that one pivot, you've brought yourself to where you are now.
I would say that was definitely the time where things shifted, and it shifted in a good way, in a much needed way. Even my wife will tell you, she's like, man, I'm just glad, because you were not on a good path, and I wasn't. So I'm glad that it happened. I mean, I'm not proud of how it happened. Mm-hmm. I mean, even as my kids get older, I mean, my podcast and the podcast I'm on, they're forever going to be out there. So my son, who was 3, he's 8 now. There's going to come a time where he's going to hear all this. Mm-hmm. And, I hope he's going to have, I don't know if he's going to be like, yeah, I remember that. Or he's going to be like, hopefully he'll be like, hey, we're all human. And, I'm glad you made a change.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, vulnerability and being open is really key in all this. And without those qualities, who knows what kind of a life you'd be having today. So I think in the long run, your son, and this is, every guy's hope, but I think he'll understand it. They say that 80% of a child's brain is developed by the age of 3. 80% of who they are is plugged in by the age of 3. And although they may not consciously remember what it is that the circumstance, and here it is, that old cliche, they're always going to know how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And I think that stems from just infancy forward. And we'll get into the PSA later, and I'm going to pump this ball forward. And so when we get there, I'm going to shut up. But even fathers of very young children take every opportunity to be the absolute best you can be, because you're then cultivating the best person, the best well-adjusted person. And the sooner you can get this, the sooner you can be that better person. I mean, the better for everyone. I
agree. I totally agree.
So that was definitely like a how did I get here kind of moment where you not only hit rock bottom, but it sounded like you bounced right out of it at the same time. You recognized that you were at rock bottom, and you did everything you could to expel energy in the correct direction to, extricate yourself.
I think so. I mean, I literally remember, I can tell you, I remember so vividly sitting at my desk, and I remember how I felt, what was going through my mind. And it was so low. It was so low. And I just remember, I don't know, maybe even call it like some divine intervention, but I just remember those words coming to me, the Good Dad Project, excuse me, and how I felt typing that into that Facebook page, like just the way it felt. And it was nothing that like I sat there for 15 minutes trying to think of a name. It was just something that just came. And the level of relief that came with that of like, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do this now. And taking that step forward, it's almost like, hey, you know what? I'm not perfect, and I need to open this up to learn. It's kind of like how, someone who maybe struggles with weight, they get to that point where they're like, that's it. I'm hiring a trainer, tomorrow. And they know it's going to be hard work, and they know they're going to be put through the ringer, and they know they're going to have to change things. But there's that level of relief of like, I'm doing something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Instead
of that millionth time saying it, they're actually doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It sounded like, your fear of being an involved parent, I kind of taking it back just a little bit, but your fear of being an involved parent displayed in zero patience and maybe in anger. I know your wife was there to kind of like redirect you. So how did you respond to her when she initially, confronted you on these sort of things?
Yeah, I really wasn't defensive because, to be honest with you, I didn't have a leg to stand on. Right. I knew she was right.
Yeah.
And I think she's known me long enough and well enough to where she knew that I want to be better. But I think she's known me long enough to like, well, I know he just needs guidance, and I know he just needs. I'm one of those people that I really thrive off just trying to learn something better or trying to learn something new or like constant improvement. So I think in her mind, she's like, he just needs a catalyst. He just needs a way to get out there and do it. It's just got to find a way that works for him. So she, I never got offended. I mean, she wasn't telling me anything I didn't already know. And so my response to her was like, you're absolutely right. I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah. No, that's extremely humble. And part of the point I'm trying to make here, and not all of our listeners are married or, who knows their situation, but to somebody who knows you, to somebody you trust, turn to them and ask for an honest assessment.
Yeah.
We don't always get that from family, because family feel like they're going to protect you by telling you what it is you want to hear. I think in your moments of weakness, in your moments of absolute change, where you have the ability to pivot, talk to a trusted friend who is going to tell you exactly where your faults are and listen to them. It's going to suck. I'll tell you that right now. I know. We've been there. And I think every guy out there knows, like you said yourself, Larry, you knew the problem, but for whatever reason, we needed to hear it from an outside influence. And from there forward, it was your choice. Then you've got to take that action. It's like, you got to take that action, actually go out there and go to the workout program or go to see the trainer or that sort of thing.
Right. Totally
Awesome.
agree.
Whew, okay. So we hit bottom. We're coming back up. So how did you motivate yourself? I'm a quotes guy. Was there a motivational quote or a mantra that you had for yourself at this time?
That's so funny. Yes, there was, because the thing that I started searching on the internet first. So if you go back to the GDP Facebook page, a lot of it was just those little, I think, memes, like the quotes, like just quotes. It's like the quote of the day that kind of inspires you or, causes you to do something different. So it was quotes in the beginning. And I don't know even where this quote even came from, but the Good Dad Project was always the quote that we've always had, and it's always been on the site, which is dads with purpose on purpose. I can't even remember where that came from. But dads with purpose on purpose. It was just something that always sounded right, because it was twofold. Dads who have a purpose, who have a mission, and then do it on purpose, who to me sounded like who are engaged.
Yeah. You're intentional, and you know where you're trying to get to.
Right.
Awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And a little sidebar here. How do you pronounce Mimi? Is that it? Mame?
Mimi. I mean, I could be totally butchering it. I think it's Mimi. I don't know. Like Sean and I have talked about this on the show. I think it's Mimi, but I could be wrong. It could be Meme. I don't know. People probably know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. The pictures with words on it. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's awesome. And at that time, memes were all over the place. And it's funny how Pinterest, Instagram, and those things are still rampant. And they for whatever reason, I mean, we can just identify with them. I'm glad that one stuck with you, because it is such a pointed and powerful kind of a quote specifically for dads.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and I think when it comes to a quote for dads, it has to be something meaningful. It has to be something, a bit masculine, a bit edgy. And I think that's a quote that guys can say with pride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. How did it go from a Facebook page, real briefly, to the next steps? Where did the book come in? Where did the speaking come in?
I mean, out of all the books that I've read over the past 5 years, I never found really a parenting book. And I definitely preface this by saying it's not a book on parenting. The book, The Dad's Edge, 9 Simple Ways to Unlimited Patience, Improve Relationships, and Positive Lasting Memories. Mm-hmm. The Dad's Edge is not a book on parenting. It's just a book on how, being a better person, being a better man. And, my stories were intertwined into the chapters of how I struggled with it and how I kind of got myself out of it. But when I was first got into this dad space, I really just wanted a book to talk with me and not down to me. And it was very hard to find. So when I wrote this book, I wanted this book to be like, hey, I'm not talking to you from a pedestal. Like, I'm an imperfect father who's a moron at times, who's in the trenches right there with you. And I get it. I get what it feels like to feel like you have no patience, but you desperately want it. I get what it feels like when you are worked to death and then everybody at home needs something from you right away. I get what it feels like to be pulled in every direction at work and have no patience at home. And I understand how bad you want to be better at it. Like, that's really what the book is really all about. And that's how I wrote it. It's from one busy, imperfect father to another busy, imperfect father. And that's why, I mean, the length of the book it's only 102 pages. And each chapter, there's 9 chapters, and each chapter at the very end has 2 to 4 takeaway tips. So even if you don't have time to read the whole book, which is totally fine, you can just go to those takeaway tips and it summarizes it for you. Because I'm like, if I really want to get to somebody, I don't want to give a guy homework. I mean, if a guy has 5 minutes to spend on the toilet and pick up my book,
right,
might as well go to the last page of the chapter that you need. So
nice.
That's the reason I wrote it the way I did.
That's so key, is to be absolutely relatable.
Right.
When there's so many books out there by professionals, and they're great, they're fantastic books, but how relatable are they? And so the book came about just immediately after the speaking. It sounded like those two things just pretty much the same time.
Yeah, I spoke, I guess, probably for a good year or so. And as I was writing the book, that's when the speaking events kind of started to be more organized in what the subject was. Like, for instance, I had a speaking event on just patience. You know, how do you get more patience? Had a speaking event on how to connect with your kids easier. We had one whole speaking event on how to connect with your wife, no matter how busy you guys are. And trust me, when you have 4 kids, it gets really busy.
Yeah.
And then another event on work-life balance. And what I find, and all my workshops and all my speaking events are highly interactive. So it's more of a group discussion versus me just talking. And what I've found is now doing this now for just over 2 years, I've done about 30 speaking events now. Man, men really want it. They eat this stuff up. They really want to know more about it. They want to be interactive about it, and they dig it. They really, really like it because it's very real to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Major takeaway here, listeners. Rad dads, reach out. You know, dads in general, reach out to other dads. And you know what? If you're fearful of the response of failure, of feeling that, reach not only in toward yourself and ask yourself what you want, but go online. You know, there's a certain comfort in having an anonymity of being, you know, a profile instead of a person. And obviously, you know, between ourselves and Larry's group, they're out there. There's groups of, how many are there now? 600? Over 600 on the.
Yeah. I actually just checked. Well, so we've got the Dad's Edge. Yeah, the Dad's Edge Facebook page, which we just created it a couple months ago, and it's up to 750 just highly engaged guys. I mean, it's a private, invite only Facebook page, but that by no means means there's a screening process or anything like that. We just ask that you are a dad, and we ask that you contribute to the conversations in there, because there are some guys that, I mean, it's great to relate and guys connect and all that, but we have some guys in there, man, that they share some pretty in-depth stuff that they're struggling with. And I think for a guy, what I've noticed about this group is that guys, we reach out when we are desperate. And sometimes even when we reach out when we're desperate, we don't even want to. But what I've noticed about the Facebook page is we've got 750 guys on there, but these guys, I think one of the things that they like about it is that it's sort of an arm's length. You know, they can key something in, they can key in a post like, hey guys, I'm kind of struggling with this. Tell me what you think. They can go walk away and then come back and there will be 20 responses of different points of view. And they like that because it's not like they have to sit face to face with another guy and feel judged or anything like that. They can just sit there but yet they can get the feedback. They can get the advice that they want, and they can get different types of advice, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, for me, I know it suits me pretty well. You know, I enjoy having my face-to-face conversations, but yeah, for that exact reason. So fantastic. So for other people struggling where you were, what strategies would you give other dads who are in that rock bottom place that you found yourself? Real succinctly, what would you tell them?
Well, I would tell them first, you're not alone, because I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that one of the struggles that we men deal with is that a lot of us just think we're on our own island. You know, we think we're the only ones out there that are dealing with this. But to be honest with you, it's the man to your right and the man to your left, the man in front and the man in back. We're all dealing with the same stuff. Like literally, we're all dealing with the same stuff. And here's what I can tell you about how to get yourself out of that. One of the chapters in my book, The Dad's Edge, is called Choose Your Peers Wisely. I think it's chapter 8 in the book. But it's so important to have the right friends, and not friends as, you know, friends, support network, whatever you want to call it. But the group of guys that you can go to, or even the one guy that you can go to. And it's not the guy that has maybe been your friend for the past 20 years. And you talk about like the good old days at high school on the football field or anything like that. These are the guys you can sit across from the coffee table and be like, look, man, and you have to do this carefully, because there's a thing about, like, with guys and quote unquote vulnerability, where a guy's like, hey, let me share my feelings with you and then you tell me what you think. Guys don't really respond to that. What guys do respond to is, I have a problem and I need your advice to help me fix it, because men are problem solvers, and that's how we're wired. Yeah. So when you sit down with a good friend, like for instance, when I'm going through a bad time, I'll sit down with one of my friends and be like, look, man, and I'll even say that, look, man, I'm going through a challenging time right now, and maybe it's with my marriage, or look, my Jessica and I just had our fourth child, and one of the things I can tell you is that, man, it's hard to find quality time, and I've noticed that our connection is lacking a little bit. And to be honest with you, we're both so busy that I don't know how to carve out the time, and even when we do, we're so exhausted. So, what do you think about that? And what do you guys do? What do you do with your marriage to help with that? And I mean, right then and there, I mean, I just told you exactly what I'm dealing with, which is, that is a very real thing right now.
Yeah.
But it's different than if I sat across from you and I'm like, man, I really got to tell you about my feelings. It's totally
I'm going to turn off the computer right now.
Right. It's more like, so what I would tell dads is, number one, you're not alone. Number two, if you want to have a conversation with one of your good friends who are going to push you forward, ask advice. Just ask advice. Be like, look, I'm going through this. Maybe you've kind of gone through this as well. What do you think? Or what am I not seeing here? And you will be shocked. Here's what I can tell you what the response will be. You will be shocked at how, number one, that will deepen your friendship with that person. But I almost guarantee 9.5 out of 10 times, what you've just done is you just now opened yourself, but you also gave that person who's sitting across from you permission to now tell you something that they're dealing with, because I guarantee that they are. Because there hasn't been a time where I've sat across from somebody and I've told them something and be like, now as you mention it, let me run this one past you. And maybe they'll tell me something that's really personal that they're going through. And then I'm able to help them. And man, the conversation is so cool. It is just so cool, because not only am I getting help, but I get to help somebody else.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. You can only take for so long. And that actually, after a little bit, as a dad, I found that giving is actually so much more rewarding.
Yes.
That's awesome. Surrounding yourself with the right peers. I mean, that's what we're talking about. There's a famous quote: "You are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with." It's a Jim Rohn quote.
Yes.
And it's so true. Just cultivate the right friendships. Get yourselves in the right group of peers. Because nothing will drag you down worse than a bad, friendship, relationship, etc. And if you have that, first try and fix it. But if not, you've got to keep your own ship afloat.
You really do. And that quote is actually the opening quote in my book. And I quoted Jim Rohn in the book, but man, it is so true. And that's one of the things I can tell you about, and maybe you've seen it in the Dad Edge Facebook group page, but the quality and integrity of the guys who, because there are guys, and there's a lot of us out there who desire to be our best, and maybe sometimes it's not the coolest thing in the world to talk about, but a lot of us have that desire. Most of us do. And when you surround yourself with that type of integrity of men who just want to be their best and help other men be their best, man, honestly, the sky is the limit when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. Awesome. We could sit here literally and talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, we could.
And that's the way it's going. But you know what? I think we're going to dive into the quick Q&A segment. Yet again, you're just dropping nuggets on us. And thank you for everything that you brought to the program thus far. So let's make it a little more personal, lighten it up a little bit here. Tell us, what is your favorite age for children and why?
Oh man, I would say, so my oldest are 10 and 8, and I got to tell you, man, I love it. I love the age. I love this age because they're at that age where, you can have a conversation with them, and you can really connect, and every day is a little bit different, and you go out and play sports, and you can joke with them, which is cool. You can wrestle with them and all that stuff. I would say the age from 5 to, I don't know anything older than 10, but I've enjoyed every age past, I would say 3, because because some of my kids have either gone through the terrible 2s or the terrible 3s, and those are tough times. I'm not gonna lie. So I would say any age after that has been pretty good up until 10. I don't know teenagers. I've heard that's challenging. We haven't gotten there yet, though.
Yeah. Well, neither have we. And I just started the 3s, the terrible 3s, myself. And I think that if you personally, this is a belief. Now, feel free to hit me up, Rad Dads. Go hit us up on the Facebook or email me. But I would like to think that if you lay your foundations properly, at those ages, the younger ages, the teenage years, are less tumultuous. They're
I've heard
less,
that. Yeah.
less tumultuous. It's not that there's no drama.
There's still going to be some tumultuous-ness. I don't even know if that's a word.
It is now.
But yeah. But I'm sure maybe, from what I understand though, if you make those deposits now, there's been some excellent guys that we've had great conversations with on previous podcasts and who have been dads for much longer than you and I. Mm-hmm. And all of them have said that, you make those solid deposits now before they're preteen. That does help a lot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, make those deposits now.
Awesome. So what's your best dad superpower or skill?
That's a good one. I would say my best dad super skill is, I love to play. I'm just a big kid. I mean, I'm 40 years old, but I would say I'm an active guy. I pride myself on eating right. I pride myself on working out all the time because that helps me show up better for them. Mm-hmm. I'm one of the few dads in my neighborhood that would get out and play football with all the kids. And it's just because I don't want to say that I'm like happy Billy Madison when he gets out there and plays dodgeball with all the little kids, but there's a competitive bone in my body that we're out there playing football that, I'll push it just a little bit. But I would say, I love getting out there and just getting dirty with them. I love getting out there and playing with them.
That's awesome. Couldn't agree more. And you know what the great thing about being a father being a dad is it gives you the opportunity to be a kid again, to experience childhood, through your child's eyes. Oh, I love it. And just for that very reason, you get to play and be a kid again.
You do. Awesome. And you also, if you came from a background like I did where you didn't really have that, mm-hmm. It's almost like you can heal your fatherhood. There was a guy, Keith Zephron's, I think his name is. He has a site called the RAD DADS Project. But he has a saying that you can heal your own childhood father wounds by being the father that you wish you would have had. And I think that's so true because if maybe you didn't have the best example growing up, or if it was a challenge, you can show up that much better and father your kids through the way that you would have wanted.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, this solid advice right there. All right, so we went through the good stuff. What's your worst, and how do you mitigate that skill, so shall we say?
Yeah, so my worst is definitely, and my 10-year-old reminded me of it last night, which is I can get distracted easy. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I get distracted by social media. Like today, purposely, I have not checked social media. I haven't checked any of my notifications. And last time I checked, it's crazy. Last time I checked, it was up to 87 notifications. And I'm just I don't even want to go there, but I just want to see if I pulled away from it for one day, what it would look like.
Yeah.
And so I would say my Achilles heel is getting distracted with my device, which what I'm going to do tonight, and I'm going to make sure that my kids hold me accountable, is I'm going to turn it off and I'm going to put it in this little box that's right by our garage door, and I'm not gonna go to it. I'm not gonna turn it on. But I would say that is my Achilles heel. That sometimes I can get just really distracted, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm finding that myself, and I think that's a pretty common problem. You just got to be proactive about it, and I think that's a really good idea is to put it in a location. They've got, I don't know what they're called. I'm gonna try and find them, but they're like little timed lock boxes essentially. So you drop whatever inside, close the door, punch 1 hour, and it won't unlock before 1 hour.
Oh, wow.
Whatever it is. Yeah. If you really want to get serious, man, there it is.
Yeah. That is definitely stepping it up.
Yeah. So, what is one of the parent fears that you might have for your kids, and how do you manage that?
Here's a good one. And so I'll be, I'm about as transparent as they come. I'll be the first to tell you how it's not roses and sunshine over here. Mm-hmm. So last night when we were going through the thing that I was telling you about, we were kind of all praying together and some of the things we were struggling with. My 10-year-old, which really surprised me because he's one of those kids that he's a people pleaser, which can be bad and good, mm-hmm. but he always wants to please you and he always wants to do good. And we never have a problem with him with behavior or school or anything. Everyone always says he's just so good. He's so well behaved. It's always please and thank you. So last night he told me something. I would just completely, it threw me for a loop. But also I had to commend him for how honest he was. So we all shared something we were struggling with, and he said, "I'm really struggling with lying." And I was like, I looked at him like, what? Like, what do you mean? And he's like, he goes, "I struggle with lying." And so my reaction, again, that 90-10, my reaction was to be like, "What do you mean you're lying? What are you lying about?" Right?
Yeah.
And to get in his face about it. But instead, again, having a podcast, you and I talked about this before the show, having a podcast is so educational. And I've gotten to learn from other guests, like, hey, when your kids come to you with something that they want to tell you, ask a question. Ask a question and do not react. Ask a question, a good question. So that it immediately like popped in, like, don't jump down his throat. Ask him something. So I just asked him, I was like, okay. I was like, well, just out of curiosity, why don't you tell the truth? Why do you feel the need to lie? And he said, well, sometimes I lie about things that happen to you guys because you guys get so mad when I make bad decisions. And I'm like, okay, so if I understand you right, the reason you feel you need to lie is because of the anger you are afraid of to see with me and Mom. And he said, yes. And I was like, okay, which makes you either feel that you can't tell us something or that you need to lie about it. And he said, yes. And I was like, okay, you know what? Lying is not right. But then again, when this kid is 15 years old and he's doing drugs, how am I going to know? If he feels that way now, I need to fix that. Like, I need to fix that. So I told him, my wife and I both told him, we're like, look, from now on, and we are going to need reminding of this. You're going to have to remind Mom and Dad. But what I can tell you is this: don't ever feel that you can't tell us the truth. In fact, when you need to tell us something, or when we ask you something, what you need to tell us is, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't be mad at me. Tell us that before you tell us whatever you need to tell us. And we will make a deal with you here and now. We won't be mad at you. You won't be grounded. We will simply just listen to you. And he's like, okay. And you could tell, like, it just gave him just this breath of fresh air. And I can tell you, I don't know what's going to come our way now. He might be telling us some things that I'm not prepared for, but I would much rather know than not.
Yeah.
So I would say that's a big one.
Wow. That's huge. I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this, and first of all, I'm in awe. Like, it really seems that you've reached a very healthy family situation where communication plagues many families. The lack of communication, the misinformation, the lying essentially. And I know, being a single dad, I mean, it's really hard because, first of all, I have a lot of issues with trusting people, because a lot of that trust rug has been just torn out from under me. But to reach that place where you can be able to communicate with somebody is just so key. And I got to tell you, I'm really lucky, when it comes to my family situation, that, we communicate pretty well, as far as co-parenting goes. And I want to just kind of say this to the rad dads out there, you don't have to be in a marriage relationship to communicate for the best interest of your child or with your child, but it does take work. However, it is the most worthwhile work you will do.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Well said too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks for being the example.
Oh, thank you.
So what's a cornerstone trait that you're trying to instill in your children, and why?
Confidence, for sure. Confidence, because confidence and humility, because I think those two go hand in hand. I coach my kids' teams too, so I try to, I don't know, selfishly, I don't much care about the other kids on the team,
right?
But I should say this: I'm never the coach; I'm the assistant coach. So I'm usually always one of a few guys who I coach baseball and wrestling, and but I do it selfishly because, like, I remember what it was like growing up, and I didn't have sometimes the best coaches, and I want to be able to give, like, a good coaching experience to the kids there, but mostly because I want to make memories of my own kids. I want my kids to look back on their sports and be like, man, my dad helped coach all my teams, and I want that time with them. But I can tell you the humility thing is big in sports. Like, we're big on good sportsmanship, shaking hands properly, good game, good match, looking at the opponent in the eyes, and being gracious that opponent gave their best to give to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so humility is one. Confidence is the other one, because I think, to be honest with you, I grew up as I was a fat kid for 15 years of my life. And I remember being made fun of. And if there was a 0 to 10 self-esteem, I was probably in negative numbers.
Mm.
And so one of the things I always try to teach my kids is confidence. And there's a big difference between confidence and cockiness. And
right.
definitely try the confidence, avenue, which is you are not better than someone, but you are amazing for who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
And don't ever forget that, and I'll make sure that when I see them do something well, that I compliment them on that, but I'm saying, hey, you should be very thankful that you have that ability, or you should be thankful that you've pushed yourself to be in the position that you are, so confidence and humility are definitely the two.
Yeah. Those are yin and yang principles too. It's got to be difficult to kind of relay those to young boys, to young men, and have them really understand the difference between confidence and cockiness and humility and, being a people pleaser, for example.
Right.
So
yeah, it's slippery slope.
It is indeed. And here we are again, guys, guidance. That's what your kids need from you, is guidance. And in your time, those are the biggest resources that your kids need. If you could share a personal public service announcement with us, what would it be?
I would say that the public service announcement would be get engaged. If you're obviously a father listening to the show, make sure you get in touch with Walter. Make sure. I think the coolest thing about podcasting is making sure that the host is connected to their audience. So if you like what you hear and you like what Walter's doing, because trust me, guys, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work doing what Walter's doing, and he does it out of the kindness of his heart. And he does it because of the mission. He wants to be the change in the world that he wants to see. So my advice to your listeners is to connect with you and to make sure that they stay connected to you. Make sure it's over email or whatever that looks like, but engage with your host, because without the audience, there is no podcast. And without the audience, there's not new ideas for things that you want to see. Some of the greatest things that have come out of the Good Dad Project are by requests of our audience. And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. But, we've been lucky that a lot of our listeners have made introductions for us or have made suggestions for us, and we've listened to those suggestions. So that would be my public service announcement, is to make sure you engage with Walter.
Wow. I'll just go ahead and preface this out here. I did not put him up to that.
No, he didn't.
I am completely humbled, by the way. Thank you. That is just like a huge compliment. I do appreciate that. And yeah, that's it. I got no words. It's pretty sad when a podcast host has no words. Awesome. Thank you. Do you have a cause for charity that you'd like to draw everyone's attention to?
My book has been out there for 6 months, and 3 out of the 6 months we have supported MS with the royalties from the book. And we're actually doing it this March. So as we speak, we're in a month right now. And thank goodness. We've had an audience that's been super engaged, in both an audience with the Good Dad Project and Dad's Edge and the MS Society, because we've just broken records this month with book sales. But we're donating 50% of the royalties this month to MS, and we've done that 3 out of the 6 months we've been out on the market. But MS, because I have an aunt who has a very aggressive case of it, and I've seen firsthand over the past 15 years what that has done to her quality of life. And we do everything in the world to try to support MS, and we're praying and hoping for a cure. So I would say that's definitely that is my charity that we always give to.
Excellent. Do you have a web address or somewhere we can get in touch with the MS Society?
Yeah. A web address, if you go to Twitter and just put in Gateway MS Society, that's the St. Louis chapter here that we support. Mm-hmm. You can also, my email is just thegooddadproject@gmail.com. And if you would like to, if you want a copy of the book, it's all Amazon sales. So if you want a copy of the book, if you want to go over to Amazon and just type in Dad Edge, it's the first book that will pop up. If you'd like to purchase one, that'd be that's fantastic. If not, no big deal. But we're giving half of those. So if you want the book and you want to help us give to a great cause, it's a great opportunity.
Excellent. We'll also have a link to the book in the show notes as well, and to the Gateway MS Society on Twitter as well. That's Larry, we could literally sit here all day and talk about, just everything. So I really wanted to thank you for coming on the program today and sharing with us just so much wisdom with everyone. That's what we're all about here, is trying to gain and learn from other people's situation and kind of accumulate that wisdom. Go ahead and just tell us how to get a hold of you and get in touch with you and add anything else that you'd really like to add here.
Yeah. So you can find everything that we're doing over at gooddadproject.com. Our podcast is by far our most popular landing page out of all that, which is gooddadproject.com/podcast. We've had a slew of just amazing guests on lately. Everything from New York Times bestselling authors to Navy SEALs to professional UFC fighters here lately. So we've had Jim Miller on. We've had Carlos Condit on. We've had Charlie the Spaniard Brenneman on, and we just scheduled Frankie Edgar actually for in the next couple of weeks here. So we've got some amazing guests over there. We also have a closed Facebook group page called The Dad's Edge, Real Dads with Purpose. If you search that on Facebook, I know you'll probably find it. Also, like I said, on Amazon, we have the book there, as well as iTunes. We have it on there as well. And we also have the podcast on iTunes and Stitcher Radio.
Fantastic. Love it. Get involved. Just like Larry says, whatever avenue you choose, do it for you, do it for your kids, do it for your family. And you'll never fail if you follow those basic rules. Larry, absolute pleasure to have you on here today. And I don't want to end, but we must.
Yeah, we've gone for a long time.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
So it's been a pleasure, man. It's been a real pleasure. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, and we look forward to continue interaction with you. Go out and get your Dad's Edge book. We'll be on the show notes. Look into the group. Larry, thanks a lot, and I'm sure we'll be in contact.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. As with most of my guests, I continue to talk to Larry for almost 2 hours. He's just a wealth of information and a great guy. I hope you got as much out of this conversation as I did. Well, that's it for this episode of We Rad Dads. I sincerely thank you for joining us. Don't forget to look us up at www.weraddads.com. There you can find links to our Facebook page and Twitter account. Got a question or comment? It may be featured. Email me, walter@weraddads.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining us. And remember, stay up, stay connected, and stay rad, dads.